So I first learned about the idea of shortened weeks when I was working on my PhD. I had a classmate who was going to medical school, and he had a weird schedule. At the time, I thought it was weird, at least, where they would work 12 to 14-hour days for some number of days, and then take some number of days off. I can't remember the exact details. And I thought that was the weirdest thing in the world, because you got to understand I have insomnia, and it might seem like a blessing to have 3 days off in a row, but the other 4 days your schedule is jammed in place, right? There's not a whole lot of leeway for your sleep schedule to sway in either direction. So, for example, last night I got some pretty good sleep because I'm anticipating going on my first vacation in almost 2 years, if you can believe it. And other times I've had stresses. I'm angry at my boss for something he said. The truth is, he and I don't beat at the same wavelength. He has some religious ideas. He has differences in how he thinks about family. He had been arguing on the phone with somebody. I'm going to assume it's a family member. He thought it was a bad idea for this family member to be living with somebody they're not married with. I kind of overheard it. He thought I didn't hear him. He was in the bathroom shouting away into the phone. And it kind of reminds me of Dave Ramsey when he was saying that. And I can't imagine how Dave Ramsey or my boss would feel if they understood that I was solosexual by heart, that I actually love myself. Anyways, so the point I wanted to get to was that those 10, 12-hour days put too little wiggle room for when you can go to sleep, and you're only one insomniac night away from disaster, right? With an 8-hour workday, I can get away with a little bit of insomnia, right? I can get away with occasionally staying up to do something at night, right? And still kind of slide back into my schedule. That's not going to work for me. And then I hear about these 13, 14-hour days. Now, at the other extreme, I also hear about people doing polyphasic sleeping, where they sleep in several segments a day. That does work for me. With one caveat, though. I'll let you pause the video to think about the caveat. So sometimes when I take a long-distance road trip, when I was driving from Seattle back home to my family in Pittsburgh, I end up doing polyphasic sleeping almost accidentally, right? I don't feel very comfortable sleeping on the road. I sleep for 2 hours and then I drive again, right? And then I sleep for another 1 hour at another rest stop. Maybe the weather might not be so nice. It might not be a safe area, so I don't fall very deeply into sleep. So I sleep an hour, and then I drive some more. And then by the time I get to Pittsburgh, I realize that during a five-day trip, I've only slept, on average, 3 hours a day. That's not unusual, actually. It's like, oh my god, I want to do this polyphasic sleeping. There's one caveat, though. First of all, where I work right now wouldn't allow for it. And second of all, it's hard to keep a good train of thought when you're sleeping like that, right? So I was working at a startup company that kind of did allow for that, but I found that it was very difficult to keep a train of thought. Every time I slept, it was like I lost another 2 hours just to get back onto the saddle with my work. And even though I only slept for 3 hours during the day, I might have spent 5 hours trying to reboot my mental process. If anybody has a solution to that, please leave a comment. Because everywhere I've looked about polyphasic sleeping, I have not seen it actually addressed. The only place where you could actually do polyphasic sleeping is if you had some kind of pure manual labor kind of job, right? If you are a truck driver, sure, go at it. But if you're doing any sort of mental work, right? Like tutoring that I'm doing right now, or the software that I was working at the startup company, forget about it. The cost of getting back on track is just going to throw you, right? Now, there is one schedule that would really be beneficial to me, and this comes back to a lot of times I get a shift that's kind of short, right? So next week, the students are coming back home from Thanksgiving, and I'm going to get a lot of 2-hour, 3-hour shifts. Now, what's really annoying is that in a typical 2-hour shift, let's say it goes from 4 to 6, right? Those are common hours at the tutoring center where I'm working at. you got to shift from 4 to 6. It puts a big pressure point at the 4 o'clock hour, right? At 2 o'clock, you can't be messed up, right? You can't be half asleep, half awake. You can't be doing your polyphasic sleeping. At 2 o'clock, you can't be doing something else that might take time to recover from, right? Maybe you if you have a partner and you're doing something wacky with them, right, at 2 o'clock, that's not going to go to. It takes time to recover from that, right? At 2 o'clock, you can't be. Here in Arizona, they recently legalized marijuana, right? But if you have to work at 4, it puts a limit to what you can do at 2, right? That's the point I wanted to make. So a 4 to 6 hour shift really puts at least a 5-hour footprint on your day, in terms of limitations on what you can be doing, where you can be at during the day. Where you can be is also another consideration, right? If you have to work in downtown Phoenix at 4 o'clock, it puts a limit to where you can be at 2 o'clock, even the night before, right? If you wanted to be specific, but especially during the last couple of hours, right? So what would be really nice is some kind of schedule that gave you a window of when you can show up, right? I don't know if the 13 or 14 hour shifts at Chick-fil-A allow you to do that. If it were 13 or 14 hours with a good window, right, plus or minus 4 hours, right? So if the shift started at 9 a.m. plus or minus 2 hours, I could probably swing that, but that's actually what I need, much more so than the hours of the day, because that would free up a lot of time and limitations to what I could do during the day. Anyways, just some food for thought there.